Hello, hello, Greenskins, and this is Orc War Chief Reviews, and I'm with Shaningan, and we're doing another honest review of probably our most favorite movie, isn't it? Predator 1.
It's certainly up there. One of the greatest action
It
movies of all
really,
time, in my opinion.
it is actually probably one of the greatest action movies. There's some problems, but it's up there. There's one other movie I could think of that might surpass it, but this is damn near pretty close. I would say if we're talking top 10, this is freaking, yeah, it's in the top 10. Easy.
Well, it's really hard to rank movies because I've seen so many, but it's definitely one of those I watch and rewatch over and over again.
It is something you can watch. And we're gonna do our the way we like to do it is we'll do a quick reviews and then we'll go into spoiler territory. If you haven't seen this movie by now, I'd be very surprised, but it's damn was this a good movie. That's all I can really say. It's you know, we were talking about doing this, and I was like, yeah, Predator, and Predator 2. Okay, yeah, this shouldn't. It's like both of us were like, yeah, this didn't take long for us to get done.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to say about this movie that hasn't been said already. It's just a damn good movie.
Hmm. And
Because go ahead.
it's yeah, like you're saying, because it's just very simply put, every mark hit.
Perfectly. I mean, well, we might as well start with
Almost
this.
perfectly.
Yeah, the thing about this movie is that as interesting as the movie is in and of itself, the production behind it is also as it has some interesting stories behind it. But I guess we'll get to that in a bit. But in terms of
Yeah.
pure excitement, like this is a movie from an era in which I think action movies knew how to cater to their audience. Okay, now
Oh,
it
they ruled the world.
yeah, I think '80s was like the peak for action movies. I mean, the '70s and the '60s had their good stuff, but I think from the '90s, or at least specifically from the mid '90s onwards, there seems
Late 80s. Yeah, late 80s to mid 90s. It was probably some of the best action movies out there.
yeah, but somewhere in the mid '90s to the late '90s, there seems to me at least there has been a bit of a decline
Hmm.
in the quality of action movies. Like this has everything one could ever want, and it's what's weird is
Yeah.
that this movie and as well as the second one, but we'll talk about that in a separate video. This, and we talked about this in failure of a franchise. The it's weird to see how poorly this franchise has been handled in since the 2000s.
Yeah, it really has, and we won't get into that because we're just going to be focusing mainly on this one. Check out Shaningan's YouTube channel. There's multiple links to it in other videos, so there'll probably be links to it here. And he puts we did a failure of franchise. I believe Predator was the one we did, um,
Yeah,
and it's just it is really bad, and it's kind of we'll kind of leave that to those videos. But so let's rate this first of all, starting with music.
great
What do you
music.
think?
I think it has a great music, and like with a lot of movies from that era, it had a distinct soundtrack. Like if you hear that tune, like you know it's Predator.
Yeah,
You could say that for a lot of the movies. You hear any song from Top Gun, you know it's Top Gun. You hear anything from Rambo, you know it's Rambo. Everything had a distinct feel to it. And I think that's one of
yeah.
the worst things about action movies. Well, movies in general nowadays, they have soundtracks are generic, dull, boring, and nobody gives two shits about soundtrack anymore.
The soundtracks are either that Zimmer boom now, that boom, 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 boom. I don't know. I don't like that, but there are occasionally we have gotten some good soundtracks, but other than like one or two movies I can think of off the top of my head, it just had a really abnormal soundtrack. Commando being one of them. Uh, I really they did really do a good job, and
It
it was
properly sets the
impressive.
tone for the movie.
Yeah, it does. It really does. This was it comes in cold and it just holds the movie all the way through. And I've enjoyed it. Fuck, goddamn, I've watched this movie maybe 1,000 times. Like
Yeah,
I was watching it again, today. So yeah, it's great.
I've
It's one
seen
of
it.
those you can just stick down.
I've seen enough times where, with the exception of the Spanish speaking scenes, I pretty much memorized the whole dialogue word for word.
I know people that have. That's the funny thing. I know people that actually, I've even to this day, I'll occasionally hear a joke from the Predator movie. Something will pop up Predator wise, as a joke. It always pops up. It exists on that level. Now let's get to the acting. Well, the action scenes. We'll go action scenes because we haven't done a live action movie yet, but this had amazing action scenes.
Oh yeah. Speaking of action, just to bring this out, this is a movie that starts out as an action movie, so it has the qualities of an action movie, and I think it does very well. But I think the first action scene of the movie when they're you know which scene I'm talking about, which we'll get into spoilers later, but the first action segment was not directed by what was it, John McTiernan, yeah, the director of the movie. I think someone else took over for that and he didn't like it, surprisingly, because
It's funny that we talking about that. There's been a couple changes to it. Like I said, the Predator had a huge change, and it's funny how the action movies where the action scenes are pretty good. Like it's almost perfect. I would actually have to say it's damn near the closest to perfect for actions. Almost. Like I would say we're talking damn near very close, very high up on my rating system.
well, what McTiernan didn't like about that particular scene, the first action scene in the
Mm,
movie, is that there was a lot of cuts. There's not much camera movement, and so you couldn't get a sense of where everyone was and what was going on. It was just cut, cut to this, cut to that, cut to that, cut to that. It's like that's what it was. And when he said that,
mm.
like now I can't unsee that, but that doesn't mean I still don't enjoy it. But I'm just thinking,
Oh,
had he been
I,
in charge of it, how much better it could have been. As awesome as it already is.
I didn't geek out on this movie that much. I still think it's an amazing movie, but
Oh no, I don't geek
I
out off
don't.
it. It's just when you look at when you have a movie on DVD or Blu-ray, you're just curious to watch the extras and
Oh yeah,
commentaries.
you will eventually watch the extras. Yeah, I've owned this on VHS forever, so it's been I don't get that fun satisfaction. Like I still have a VHS that's still probably kicking around. It works fine, and I've watched it repeatedly. I've never watched the commentaries, but I understand. Same thing to Ghostbusters, which I think is my top movie. I watched the original, one of the OG, I think anniversary editions of the original Ghostbusters 1 and 2, and I listened to the commentary of both. So I get where he's coming from.
So yeah, but the other action scenes, which were directed the way McTiernan wanted to do, because he was in charge of them, it was like, wow, the guy
Mm,
knows how to build suspense.
mm,
He wanted to create a sense of claustrophobia since they were in the jungle,
mm.
and
And boy, did he make a good job at doing it.
oh yeah, it's like there's all these the trees and the leaves. It creates this uncertainty. So for first time viewers, it's like you holy crap, you don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know anything could happen at any time.
Yeah, and we got the acting. We cut to the acting now. Holy crap! Wow. You know what? Two of my favorite actors and two actors that rarely like. Well, one of them gets one. Two of my favorite like. Well, there's almost four of my favorite actors are in this movie, and two of my favorite black actors. Like I have a huge collection of actors, and the two of my favorite are the two guys in there. Uh, Amazing actors.
Carl
One played
Weathers,
Apollo Creed. Yeah. Oh yeah.
great
Apollo
actor.
Creed.
He's like the king of
Amazing
cool.
actor. I think he's underused. I would have loved to see him in more movies. I'm kind of sad he wasn't in a lot.
Dude, you know what pisses me off? That we never got an Action Jackson 2 or 3 or 4. Like, Action Jackson never became a
Mm.
franchise.
I know we never. Well, I'm partially happy about that because then we actually got a movie that was actually we got something that stayed true. Staying true sometimes better than making more movies. And like the other guy, there's that scene where he's talking about his friend there, and that's honest emoting, this serious emotion coming from him, and that's an actor that doesn't get those roles that often.
Yeah.
Like he always like most of the time he plays bad guys. The last movie I really remember him in was Commando.
Oh, Bill Duke.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
yeah,
usually
it was
does
the last
cop
movie.
movies. Like he's usually a cop or something like that.
Yeah, he's usually either that or a bad guy. We don't really see him emote that often, and I think he was really fucking good in this movie. Like it shows you some of these muscle men could act. Like this actually showed to me like Arnold Schwarzenegger made his money off of Conan, but the movie that showed that he could actually act is this movie.
Yeah, I agree. This is I think McTiernan brought the best of out of him in this movie.
I think they brought the best of every actor in this movie. I think it's really well done. Like I said, it's almost
Yeah, but what makes it more
I don't
impressive for Schwarzenegger is that because prior to this, or even to this day, people just see him as just a beefcake, and that's all he is. But I think he's a better actor than people give him credit for. And I'm not saying that
yeah,
before this he wasn't doing a good job. I think he's always done a good job. But people like to make fun of the accent that he's always doing. Yeah, it's like that
I
gets.
know, I know, I know. I think he is a great actor.
I agree.
And and now we come to the story. Now, wow. Okay, you know what? The story is not as top tier. Like I think it built something, but I think that this story is still really good. Like it's a simple, sweet story if you think about it. It's
Yes,
simple and sweet.
it's a very
It
simple story. It doesn't need to be
yeah,
complicated. It's not about
no.
how deep and thought provoking and mentally challenging it is. Yeah, fuck those people who are always like who only watch
Yeah,
movies that make them feel
yeah,
that way. It's like you
yeah, yeah,
snobbish pricks.
yeah. Screw Oscars for making the Sound of Water freaking.
Dude, most Oscar winners are shit. I'm gonna say that right
Yeah,
now.
most Oscar. Yeah, let's be honest. Most people don't like. I like I said, and that's what makes this movie so goddamn good. It's simple. It's sweet. We don't have any stupidity. It's just go for it, and it's letting the actors. It's letting the actors have fun, and letting the people do what they have to do, and letting people kind of run wild. And I think that's a better way of running a movie and running a like. It's sad to see the franchise go the way it did, but I would say that, like I said, again, almost perfect.
Yeah, that's not to say this movie is just a big dumb action movie. There is substance to it, even in what's simplicity it has, and I think
No,
it's to do
the actors brought the substance. That's what I'm saying.
exactly.
The actors brought the substance.
It's the
It was
characters though,
it
because usually
yeah,
in action movies you've got these beefcakes who are just indestructible. This is a movie where the reverse is happening. These beefcakes are now scared for their lives. And
yeah.
like before,
It works.
like I think would this consider beast? You know what? I'll leave this part for the spoiler portion.
Yeah, yeah. We'll leave for spoiler portion. So, what are you going to give this thing?
Dude, this is like a 9. No, nothing
I
less.
I would say actually, I'm going to say this is damn near close to being a almost perfect. I would say there's only one other. It's sad to say this, as much as I like to say it. As an action movie, I would give this a 9.5. But as a Predator movie, I'd say it's a 9.
Well, let me ask you something. How is this a horror movie? Because now there's a discussion of whether
Oh,
this counts as a
zero.
horror movie or if this is an action movie.
I would say this is an action movie. I would say this is a 0. I know people say, oh, it's a horror movie too, but come on, be honest. This isn't a horror movie. This is an action movie. This has moments of dread, but an action movie can have moments of dread. Cobra is a good example. I would actually say Cobra is a more terrifying horror movie than I think Cobra is more of a horror movie than freaking what's it called than Predator.
Huh. I never saw Cobra as a horror movie at all.
watch the scenes and actually think about it. Like actually think about how terrifying it is when she's being chased around by the fucking knife wielding guy. Some of the scenes are really disturbing and actually very terrifying.
Maybe because action movies in those days were actually violent. They were worthy of the R rating. So it's like the extreme violence
Mm,
is nothing new, and it's not that much, unless it's meant to
mm,
be gratuitous. Like in horror films, there's really
mm.
not much difference.
Yeah, I almost agree. It has that moment of stuff. So we're getting into spoiler territory, and it's what can we really spoil a movie that's been around for almost fucking 30 almost 40 years?
We shouldn't have to, but we're getting to an age,
Yeah.
and as we said in my Michael
It's being
Jackson thing,
forgotten. Yeah.
people are forgetting things. I mean, people are forgetting Elvis. People are forgetting, you know, uh,
Yeah.
Michael Jackson himself. It's like now I feel like these old classics are being forgotten because nobody. There's a stigma against watching something old.
Yeah, and I don't agree with that if it's done right. Like this movie is one of the few movies I feel like is not dated.
Well, it is
I
if you are a military buff. I mean, you look at their weapons. You're like, oh, this has been discontinued. That has been discontinued. Stuff like that. But apart from
I
that,
wouldn't know I wouldn't know any of that information, but to the average person isn't going to see it that way. If you're going to sit down and just watch this, it's you're not going to see it for that. I could maybe an action guy might be able to see, oh yeah, that's that. But this is something that most people aren't going to see as they're not going to see as dated. It's almost timeless,
yeah, it really is.
almost timeless. Like that's how good it is. It's damn near close to being timeless. It's a really good movie, fucking phenomenal for that. And like I said, all the characters, Jesse Ventura, all of them just did great job. Like it was perfect acting. It was perfect pitch, perfect cast.
Exactly.
And I can see why this spawned it. I can see why this spawned helped spawn a franchise.
Unfortunately, it was handled by the wrong people at some after the second movie.
I I would say that the first movie, that this movie gives you the reason that comic books start coming out. This movie gives you a reason why we had a second movie, and this is and even though the first movie, like I said, is almost perfect. I would say it's a damn near perfect action movie. I don't think it's the greatest Predator movie though, if that makes a lot of sense. And I think its shortcomings is that there were moments in here where I felt like the intimidation factor wasn't as and this is that's saying something. The intimidation factor to this wasn't as intense as you can think. And there were a lot of funny scenes in here. One of my favorite scenes in this movie was the scene where my friend has a running gag. If they hadn't killed that scorpion, the predator wouldn't have killed them.
Oh, that scorpion! I remember there was a goof on that scene, but I don't. Should I tell people because they
Go
won't be
for
able
it.
to
We're
see
on
it?
spoiler territory.
Okay, well when Mac, played by Bill Duke, puts the
Yeah,
scorpion, it's facing
the
it's
wrong way.
the wrong way. But when it cuts to the scene where when he steps on it and he moves his foot out of the way, it's facing the other way. Like they
Yeah.
really, yeah, somebody goofed there. But anyway, but regarding to the plot, the story, again, like we said earlier, it's a very simple story. There's really not much in terms of
Yeah.
depth and overall meaning, but it does come from the characters. I guess if there's one thing you can get out of this, and this is one thing it has similar to Rambo, except that
Mm.
Rambo can turn
Let's not
this
say
trait
too
on
much
and
about
off.
Rambo because that's
But
in the future. That's in the future.
the thing about this is that these are men who, well, especially later in the film with Schwarzenegger, he had to rely on his primal instincts and rely on his surroundings to take on the predator because he lost his equipment, he lost his guns, he lost his friends, he has no one to help him. So it's all about he just went primal right then and there. And
Yeah, and that's what makes the movie damn near. That's what makes the movie damn near That's what makes the movie really good. And it's just like the problem I had with that though, with that scene was, and that's kind of the main reason I had a big issue with that primal scene at the end. It's like he's doing this and the predator ain't watching him. Like this entire time he's hunting them. Like in his mind, the predator shouldn't even been there. The predator already got his kill and should have left. There's no reason to stick around.
Well, yeah, but again, this is an alien. There's no point in trying to understand it. I think the mystery or what leaving some things unanswered
No,
is works to their.
yeah, that was good for the predator. But now that we know what we know, the books and shit, it made a little sense for it makes a little sense. Okay, I'm a vicious killer. I just killed a whole group of people. He's almost certain that the people got away because he can't find the guy. So why wasn't he continually trying to track him? Here's Arnie like working until the night, freaking building traps, and the predator's not like, yeah, not watching him.
Well, there is the
Like
factor
if they're
that the predator, like if he like he probably saw Dutch played by Schwarzenegger. You know what?
mm,
I can't believe we even had to do a spoiler section. It should have been a spoiler from the start. But anyway, um,
yeah.
he probably saw Dutch as the prize, and so he had to weed out the fat before he got to the meat of the group.
Yeah,
That's what he
I
was
get
trying to
what
do.
you're saying. I get what you're saying, but what I'm saying is that it makes little sense for the guy to actually, start drama with the matter, and
Well,
you
call it
know,
cultural differences because the predators they live off hunting. That's just what they are.
yeah, it was just kind of funny though that he's sitting there building traps for. See, that's my biggest plot hole in the movie. Yeah, in the movie I didn't like having a little seizure here. That's the biggest plot hole that I had with it is we really needed that one point. We really needed that key thing. Almost like I said, it makes the movie almost perfect. It makes we could have had more. We could have had a little more to it. We could have done a little more to it. But that's the one thing that makes the movie. It would have been more cooler if it would have been as much as it was an awesome scene. And it makes no sense to me in the end. And that's one of the biggest disses I have to say to Predator. That's the only scene that didn't make any sense. It would have been more cooler if they would have fought one on one right off the hop. Realizing Dutch didn't fight, and kind of kept the action going, but stopping that. But it also added some amazing scenes and some amazing visual effects. Like that had a brilliant visual effects. Like the Predator was at the time. Did you feel like that's dated now? Have you after seeing these effects?
Yeah, effects wise, yeah, it's definitely dated, but at the same time, it still works in the movie's favor because it adds that creep, that dreaded factor. Its vision is what adds to the scariness and the
I don't think
otherworldliness.
it's dated. I actually do not believe it's dated.
I will say that the final scene when it takes off the mask and its vision changes, that they could have
Mhm.
done better. It did. I couldn't see. I couldn't understand what was going on. It's like
Well, like I said, it's one of the few times that was a little bit problematic, but it was a decent movie. Like I said, altogether, that was a great movie, and it really was good. Like shit, like what a freaking amazing movie,
yeah,
and almost perfect. Like I rarely come up to the nine. I rarely get my tens. I've never had a 10 movie, not recently. Like maybe in the future I might hit something that really gets me, but I've I think I've come very close to being almost perfect. It's up there with John Wick for me for movies that are really quite fun to watch and a really enjoying action movie.
yeah. There's nothing I can say about this that
No,
no one else
there
has said.
really
It's an
is.
amazing movie, and I think everybody who loves action should or science fiction should check it out. This is another thing about it. There are some people, especially older people, like, and I don't mean like people born in the '80s or the '70s. Like, no, much older people. Like
Mm.
there was a time where a lot of people thought that even science fiction, people at the age of 13 would say science fiction is for kids. Maybe because they were made cheesily back in the 50s and 60s and before. What I mean?
Right, they don't say that the second they see Predator, right? Like it's one of the few action movies that, and it's one of the few sci-fi movies that's really well done.
Well, no, they might still say that, but they will still find some level of enjoyment. They wouldn't find it as cringy as they did with the extremely old sci-fi stuff. But it's just that, and
Well,
I think what works is that because
I've never,
the sci-fi element like takes a back seat because it's mostly grounded. It doesn't try to show off special effects. It doesn't show off Predator technology. It's still about the
yeah.
soldiers, and the Predator is this
It,
elusive, mysterious thing that we don't see until 2/3 into the movie.
I would say it still has its points and it's still quite good. And you know, I get a good laugh at what the fuck's been going on with it. Like I get a good laugh at like people like anybody who says this movie sucks, like purely sucks, is like, yeah, bullshit. Like you've never seen it. That's my response 90% of the time. Is like, there's no way you saw this movie. And I've never run into someone that says this movie sucks. But the few
Oh, I
people
know
I've
one
heard, oh
person who said this movie sucks. It's a friend of mine, but I like to say I tend to say to him, "Duh, I get the vibe that he's one of those guys who needs something, who needs to be challenged in their stories. Like, come on, dude, don't be like that."
yeah, you got to like, even from a filmography, even from like, I've heard no one say anything bad about this movie on a general day. But I laugh a lot if I laugh at that because it's just like there was a time I remember people had that Predator poster on their walls. That was a staple of a teenage bedroom, of Arnold Schwarzenegger on your wall. That Predator thing, that was a staple.
You know what? I should probably get one myself.
Hey, that was the staple for the place, man. Back in the day, I
Well,
saw Predator.
speaking of posters, sorry to get off topic slightly, but movie posters back then were a lot better than they are now. I mean, that Predator poster looks amazing. There's a lot going on in it. Nowadays, it's
Mm,
just the actors standing and posing in front of a camera. Like that's all it is. There's no.
I would actually say yay and nay to at least the Predator poster, considering the fact that back in the day posters were really good, and we had some really amazing poster art back in the day because there's some really good artists that worked on it. Like the Star Wars one, for example, is a good example. Clockwise Orange, really an amazing poster. I had Indiana Jones. Like I can go on and on and on, but
Oh yeah, like the Star
no,
Wars sequel trilogy posters. Oh, as impressive
they're
as much as
ugly.
it likes to as much as it does like to stick to the feel and tone of the original, there is something photoshoppy about it. Whereas from the
Oh, it is.
prequels and
It
before,
feels Photoshop.
they were painted. Now I'm not saying
Yeah,
digital art can't be good. It's just I don't know
no,
there
there's
is
a flavor. There's a flavor
exactly.
that's lost. That's lost with the way they did it.
Yeah, it just feels
Overall,
too clean.
phenomenal. Yeah, overall phenomenal. Really well done. I think they did a great job. And
One of the few movies where I cared about each of the characters. I mean, yes, Schwarzenegger's in it, and he carries the star power, and to to a lesser extent, Carl Weathers, who was also cool in this movie. But it's like, but I still like. You did care when Jesse Ventura's character died, or when Bill Duke's character died, or when
oh, they
Billy
were good
died.
at it. It was a good. It really was good, wasn't it? Like I get this. That's all I can keep saying. It was just so they did such a good job. They did such a good job building his characters up. They did such a good job making these guys He-Mans.
Yeah,
They did such a good job. It is almost a perfect movie.
you'd think
Like
someone
I
like
said,
Schwarzenegger
almost perfect.
and his star power would overshadow the cast, but somehow it didn't.
I don't think he did. I don't think any of these guys did. I think they did an amazing job. Overall, great movie, and that's all we can really say. Like we can just gush about this movie for like an hour, but there's no point. We've repeatedly said it over and over again. Great movie, worth a watch, right? Any final thoughts? Because we might as well just sign this off. Because dear God, we'll just be saying how awesome it is.
No, I've got nothing else to add. I'll just be repeating myself.
Yeah, we will be literally repeating ourselves. Great movie, worth a buy, worth a watch, almost perfect. I think still one of the best action, almost one of the best action movies out there. Almost the best Predator movie out there.
Almost.
Catch us for almost. Yes, we're going to be talking about Predator 2 after this.
But that is where I will disagree. I think it is the best Predator
Well,
movie.
we'll talk about that. Yeah, we'll talk about that in the next movie review. Predator 2 is coming up next, guys. You have yourselves a very, very good day. And like, sub, and subscribe, and we'll talk to you guys later.
See ya.